All right. Welcome back to Leaders Who Care. Florian, we're on what we call on the fly here, where special announcements, updates, great things happening come up. And why don't you announce what's happening? Why don't you announce where you're going? And one thing I do want to say is this is perfect for Leaders Who Care because you're talking about caring finance, I believe. So tell us, update us on what's going on with Florian.
Yeah. So again, it's time for change, after probably, decade, close to a decade in impact investing with Bamboo, many years, and then Palladium on the capital mobilization side. I'm entering a next chapter as November 1st. I'm becoming managing partner of KOIS, KOIS, and specifically to run the advisory business of KOIS, because we also have an asset management business quite successfully. And the two founders are focused on the asset management. We're looking for a third partner to join to drive and lead a pretty impressive team, which is the company is based in Brussels, but then there's also some team members in Paris. Then the bigger team is actually in Mumbai, in India, and then also Nairobi. And for me, again, they reached out. It was a perfect fit because the skill set on the advisory side, on the impact investing side, is also very exciting for me. And as you say, the slogan of KOIS, who has been there close to 15 years around, very successfully, and a great reputation, is actually caring finance. And the beauty of that is that KOIS is focused on three focus areas. One is nature-based solutions or nature or climate overall. That's what I've been doing. The second is specifically education. And one of the non-exec roles I have in the education space is also in that field. So I'm really compelled to double down. And the third one brings me back to my previous life, Mark, when we discussed, which is healthcare. Yeah, but healthcare and impact investing specifically. And that's very exciting. So on that side, for me, it is a perfect fit. Now, from a specific skill set, KOIS has very strong skill set in blended finance, which I've been doing for quite some years now at Bamboo. And then also a lot of impact bonds, which is a new field for me to learn about. So I'm really excited to join the team. And I will still live in Geneva. But again, instead of traveling back and forth from London to Geneva, it would be from Brussels to Geneva.
That's not too bad. Brussels is a pretty cool place too. First of all, congratulations. That's super exciting. Way to go. What does KOIS stand for? Where did that name come from?
That is so funny because I asked also, I thought it was an acronym.
Right.
And no, when the founders, Francois and Charles, originally kicked off the business, they were looking at a name. Yeah, and apparently Francois is something where in English, especially overseas or in the emerging market, they would say Francois. And that's where the Cois comes from, funny enough, from the name, and it's a brand name today. And it's again in the internet world, the tech world, 4 short letters, different. They don't exist otherwise, so it's really good. And they have been pretty forced in the space.
So is it going to be like, when Google started way back, people said Google or Yahoo, what kind of crazy names? But then you start saying Google this, Google that, and this, that. Are we going to start koising this and koising that?
I love the idea. Let me just, I'm still migrating out of my current role into the KOIS world, but I love that actually. You would it in an English way, basically to make it a verb, and then it's action
Exactly.
oriented. I
Yeah,
love
you
it.
really know when you made it when something like Kleenex or Scotch tape actually becomes the word versus just the brand.
Yes, yes.
So we'll start putting it out there. Anybody who wants to, get coist or coist something, especially in finance, that's the place to go. Can you share? A lot of our audience would know it, but can you share what blended finance really is?
Oh, good. That's a great question. So basically, blended finance in the impact investing world is basically where you try to align different um, capital with a different risk reward return into one vehicle based on one theory of change. So typically you would have more development world work, capital, or let's say more venture philanthropy capital, which would do certain things, but it's not capital, it's more grants and donations.
Mm-hmm.
But they now enter the world of for-profit investments, where basically the catalytic capital, the non-for-profit capital, is the first tranche of a fund to lower the risk reward return for the subsequent tranches on top. Yeah, then it's usually it's catalytic capital is an equity. You might have another equity layer. You might have then debt on top. It depends if it's fixed income debt fund or is it an equity fund. But the intention is basically you adjust the risk reward return so that you're actually able to invest. And if you remember, impact investing has two components. It's the intentionality of the investments. Yeah. So you can see that in the ESG also has an intention, not just to invest for the sake of the returns, but the intention. And then there's the additionality of the investment. And that's the impact investing space. The space with ESG does not have necessarily. Yeah. And in order to, funnel money where it's difficult to access, on the additionality, that's where blended finance is actually a great way where you align different pots of money, at a lower risk reward return so that you can take a higher risk. Yeah. And it can be the risk can be in the geography, the risk can be in the term of the sector, the risk can be it's focused on the stage of an investment again, but you want to adjust the risk reward return. So eventually, if you have 50 million first loss, and then you can put a tranche of 50 million equity on top, and then 200 million debt. Yeah, if this is a debt fund, usually 100 million today would look for 9-10% returns in a normal way and not a risky way. Now, if you have the first layer not focused for financial returns, but just for capital protection, then the second layer can go lower, and the third one even lower. So the cost of the money actually could be divided by half compared to other funds. But again, it's not just the intention is not to have cheap money. The intention is you can adjust the risk reward return so that you're able to provide the intentionality and the additionality of the investment in impact investing.
Yeah, what I love about it, what I've always loved about it, two things. I don't call nonprofits and that, I call them social profits, because I always think there should be an impact there anyways, and an intent there anyways. Doesn't mean you have to have a loss or be poor. And you always have to have an impact in any investment. Is also an interesting concept of not just the social investment should have an impact, but there should be a financial impact. And it allows really for both. And I agree, it's exciting because there'll be more impact because investment will come in where it may not have been able to or want to come in without that initial investment that you're talking about, the blended investment. So it's a win-win impact all over the place.
Correct. Now it's difficult to raise because you have to explain a lot of, there's a lot of information to digest to different constituents of such a fund.
Right.
It's not a so-called plain vanilla structure. Yeah, there's a complexity to it, and that makes it more difficult to raise. And then also, how do you measure risk reward return? Yes, you're protected below. You might not lose your money. You might have less returns or no returns, but still not losing the money. And again, the notion of risk and reward and return is at the end something which is probably more emotional rather than rational. Yeah, because it's not just based on the math you can extrapolate from, the financial returns specifically. But again, these are the ways where you can bring capital to an area where it's difficult to get, which is the quintessence of impact investing.
Yeah, and share how there's also differences in looking short-term, medium-term, or long-term in a lot of the projects too, right?
Yes, the so-called patient capital is
right.
something common in the impact investing. You take just longer, especially when you invest in, let's say, SMEs. You wouldn't look at an IPO necessarily. Yeah. Especially looking, again, it can be, but not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a different notion, of course, and then you might have to invest less amount of money compared maybe to the Western world. Yeah, but then it takes longer, for you actually to stay in a company, especially when it's an equity side. That's at least my experience.
There's a great lesson here too. You talked about going back to this part of your life and that part of your life and bringing it all together. When we first started talking, that's why I like asking people what they liked when they were a kid and things like that. And it's funny how the thread continues, but the lesson really here is over your journey, you're developing relationships, you're developing knowledge, you're developing, skill sets to potentially end up combining the life sciences, the education, the experiences, relationships you've had into an opportunity like this and make an impact.
Yes, you actually have a great point here. Again, it's not, probably from a hindsight, nothing which was really, really planned. Because when I left the healthcare business and joined the impact investing business, I actually joined because there was also healthcare access as a portion. I said, okay, I know that, and then you joined. At the end, I did do very little healthcare, if not none, because that was done previously to me when I joined Bamboo. Yeah. So I left, my old world. And a lot of people were saying, oh, you totally pivoted into something totally new. This has nothing to do with healthcare. And in hindsight, it has. Yeah.
Right.
And so that's the beauty of life sometimes as things go along. And when you take a helicopter view and you look at things, yeah, there's a good reason why you went through certain phases. I did certain things even not knowing, because now the sum of the skill set and the experience I have is definitely something I can bring to the table here at Kois.
Yeah, and I find it's not planning, but I always just find, and not to be cute, but leaders who really care about making a difference, in other words, making money, are also developing great relationships because they do care. And that is the common thread of it all coming together. And maybe there wasn't a straight path and stuff, but you have relationships that also switch things and ended up, in same places as you, either as a partner or a vendor or a strategic partner, whatever, different things, an employee. And I think it all comes back, and people love to work with people that really do care about both making money and making an impact. And so it's funny how it all comes around, and the world's changing so fast that I'm not sure you can plan. Like I remember, coming out of college, they always ask you, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? And you still kind of know, but you don't know. And you certainly didn't know coming out of college that this is where you're going to end up at the time. So it's pretty fascinating. How about talent wise? One of my favorite subjects. How do you, what's the type of talent you look to attract with a firm like this?
Yeah, it's a good question, but usually, I mean, with younger people, that's less of a question because the quest for dedicating yourself to something with a cause is much higher than you and I would have when we were young and were started in a job. The intention was just to have a job and
Well,
be
thanks for telling me when I
successful.
was young. I appreciate that. Um, but go ahead.
Yeah, but that's a point, um, the generations have changed and the ambition of people to do something has also changed.
Right.
And there it's beautiful because usually we have people with a background, a finance background, sometimes an economic development background, which is on the other side of the pole, financial markets and development markets. Yeah, then you have more and more also directly and bespoke people being trained in impact investing. Yeah, which didn't exist 15 years ago. But now it's, it's the understanding. Yeah. So in the same sense, but the notion where even though it's hard, and even you might make more money elsewhere with something else, yeah, but the reward is not just financially, yeah, or to be successful,
Right.
yeah, but really the reward is actually, um, that you work, your day job is trying to resolve things, which is important for people and planet.
Well, that is successful to a lot of people now, and that is, you're right, the difference where is you don't have to be, it's not a bad thing to make money, and it's not a bad thing to care about making a social impact or environmental impact. And maybe that's what success is supposed to be in the first place, is you need the economic impact to be able to sustain the social and environmental impact. And why not have a purpose versus just going to work to, I remember one of my clients has been Burger King world headquarters for a long time, and once a year they would have all the people from headquarters. They didn't call it a retreat, but they all came out, the accounting, the supply chain, the marketing people, whatnot. And the whole point was to get them back to thinking, you're not in the accounting or marketing or supply chain business. We're in feeding people business, to get that thing back again, that spark of why are we here? So it's not just going to work every day to do what you're doing. And at the end of the day, I think that's what people really want.
Absolutely. And it's funny, actually, right now, after our conversation, I have a conversation with a company in Mexico in the healthcare space, which is a portfolio company of Kois. Yeah. And where my partner said, you might consider, stepping into that board. And I said, okay, look at that. Here I'm back. My family is Mexican. I speak Mexican at home, Mexican Spanish at home.
Right.
I've been 10 years living in Mexico in the healthcare space. And here I am now going back on a board of a company in the space, which is really, really exciting for me. And that goes back what you said, the thread. It's just a joy to do those things now.
Well, felicitaciones, buena suerte. We'll be following you, and I totally wish you all the best of luck. I'm sure you'll do fantastic, and I know you're going to make an impact. So, congrats.
Thank you, Mark. And please do and keep voice the leaders of Who Care, because I'm a big fan of what you're doing, because it's really great that people know about it.
Well, we're going to keep at it, and with your help too. So, thanks for being part of it, and thanks for being a leader who cares. And we'll be talking some more.
Amazing, Mark. Thank you.